The results overwhelmed him. Thousands upon thousands of links filled the page, personal stories, articles, forums, and advice columns. "Where do I even start?" he muttered. For the next 2 hours, he dove deep, clicking links, saving files, and trying to distill enough information to build a believable backstory. He read accounts of people who had lived through identity struggles, stories of childhood memories that suddenly made sense later in life, and blog entries about navigating school, family, and sports. Some of it hit uncomfortably close to home. One story described a boy who had struggled with team sports as a child, never feeling comfortable in the games other kids loved. Mickey frowned. "That was me. That's why I turned to tennis in the first place." Another post spoke of youthful curiosity about what it would be like to live as the opposite gender, something Mickey remembered thinking about as well. The more he read, the easier it became to weave together his own history. By the end of the night, he had crafted a narrative. Shelley was an uncertain young person with long-standing identity questions. She had chosen to live experimentally as female, not permanently, but full-time for now. Her tennis career, which had begun as an escape from those inner conflicts, had ironically become the perfect framework to explore them. With the support of Cynthia and the girls, Shelley had found the courage to continue the experiment in safety. "Well, that should keep Lydia satisfied," Mickey said with some pride. If he could convince a trained psychiatrist, he thought, maybe he really could convince anyone. When he met Lydia again the following week, he was nervous at first. He had memorized the story, rehearsed the details, and now it was time to deliver. Lydia welcomed him back warmly. "Relax, Shelley. Don't forget, I'm your friend as well as your counselor." That reassurance gave Shelley confidence. She shared her carefully prepared backstory, piece by piece. Lydia asked occasional clarifying questions, jotting notes. By the end of the hour, Shelley had grown more relaxed, even confident. Lydia sat back, studying her with thoughtful eyes. "She's carried it off brilliantly," Lydia thought. And she was convinced. Which brought her to her next point. Shelley thanked Lydia and Marian and left with her medication. As she walked back, she considered how best to handle it. At first, she thought about taking only half the dose, but then realized that might not show any effect at all, which could raise questions. Since Marian had assured her it was a light dosage to begin with, Shelley decided to follow instructions carefully for now. Back in her room, she opened the packet, swallowed 2 pills with water, and laughed softly. "Nothing to it," she murmured. "I feel like I'm stepping into a new chapter already." For the first time, Shelley felt fully in control of her life. She was comfortable in her role, accepted by her housemates, thriving under Cynthia's coaching, progressing with her counselor Lydia, and convincing her physician Marian that she was safe and committed. All of it felt real. By the end of the semester, her confidence was unshakable. She attended lectures without fear, sat through final exams smoothly, and moved about campus with ease. When the girls left for a short vacation, Shelley stayed behind. Her mother was overseas now, and there was no reason to revert to being Mickey, even temporarily. She embraced the solitude, kept up with her routine, and spent hours online studying style tips, makeup tricks, and stories of others navigating identity changes. She grew bolder, venturing into town to shop and blend in among strangers. By the time the others returned, Shelley had noticed changes. Her old body shapers felt tighter, and her wardrobe was starting to fit differently. She quietly decided to set the shaping garments aside, preferring her natural form, and found no one seemed to notice. Cynthia, watching her progress, thought to herself, "She's looking more polished than ever. What a shame this can't last forever." Her tennis training with Jenny was going so well that Cynthia proposed they enter a doubles tournament together. Jenny was excited, and though Shelley hesitated at first, the encouragement of the other girls convinced her. The tournament was at another college, 3 hours away. Normally, both male and female teams would share the bus, but Shelley flatly refused. She couldn't risk bumping into old friends like George or Eric. Instead, Jenny, and Melissa went together by car. Midway there, Jenny casually added, "Oh, by the way, my parents will be at the tournament." Shelley froze. You didn't tell me that before. Relax, Jenny replied. They'll love you. And besides, they've done so much for us, meeting them is the least we can do. Melissa chimed in support, but Shelley sat stiffly, anxious about the idea. The tournament itself went smoothly. Jenny and Shelley won their doubles match in straight sets, and when Shelley was introduced to the crowd as Michelle Webster, she felt a strange mixture of pride and relief. No one connected her to Mickey. Meeting Jenny's parents was easier than she expected. They were gracious, warm, and clearly proud of Jenny's progress. When Shelley thanked them sincerely, Mr. Lindley simply said, "Jenny's hard work is what matters." That's thanks enough. It wasn't until afterward that Jenny mentioned her cousin Billy, who had apparently been watching training videos and was curious about Shelley. Don't worry, Jenny teased lightly, he's just a year younger than me and way too easily impressed. You've got nothing to fear. Shelley wasn't amused, but Jenny and Melissa laughed it off. In the end, Jenny decided not to risk introducing Shelley to extended family, keeping her carefully shielded from unnecessary complications. Shelley, meanwhile, spent the next weekend immersed in more online research. She was fascinated by the vast world of experiences and advice she discovered, stories about confidence, presentation, and living authentically. She also began to wonder about the effects of her ongoing treatment and what it might mean for her in the months ahead. Shelley had noticed changes in her body. The pills and patches were working faster than she expected. Her shape was softening, her features smoothing out. She wasn't ready to give any of that up, not yet. With only a few months until the end of the year, she told herself, better to keep going than risk losing everything now. She even caught herself browsing online for things like cosmetic surgery, staring wistfully at before and after photos, imagining what it might be like to have sharper cheekbones or a more refined jawline. But she wasn't the only one doing research that weekend. Cynthia was digging too. Her friend Pam, who worked in the medical center, had handed her a photocopy of something that made her blood run cold. Cynthia, Pam said quietly, I think Shelley is under Lydia's guidance and Marian's too. Whatever's happening, it looks like a full transition plan. This isn't temporary anymore. Cynthia stared at the page, stunned. No, she wouldn't. Not without telling me. Pam shook her head. I'm afraid it's already happening. Weekly meetings with Lydia, checkups with Marian, all under the radar. Cynthia, you've been cut out of the loop. Cynthia's stomach nodded. The idea that Lydia, her old rival, had managed to step in and steer Shelley shook her to the core. That woman, she muttered, pacing, she's twisting everything. Getting into Shelley's head, turning this into something none of us planned. Her first instinct was to march straight to Lydia's office and confront her. But Pam stopped her. If you do that, you'll be admitting to everything you and the girls have already done, Pam warned. And Lydia could take it all straight to the administration. You'd lose your position instantly. Cynthia froze, torn between anger and fear. So what do we do? She asked. For now, keep watching her, Pam advised. I'll monitor what I can from the clinic. You talk to Shelley directly. See what she really wants. Don't involve the other girls yet. Not until we're sure. Cynthia nodded reluctantly. Fine. A few more weeks. Maybe Shelley will reconsider on her own. But Shelley didn't. She leaned further into her role with each passing day. Her confidence grew. Her body was changing in ways even the other girls couldn't ignore. During one practice match, Shelley delivered a blazing passing shot down the line. Nice one, Shelley. Cynthia called. From the stands, Carol nudged Helen with a grin. She's definitely changing. Helen smirked. No kidding. It's not just her game that's improving. Melissa added with a laugh. Whatever she's doing, it's working. Christine joked, at this point, she's going to be impossible to tell apart from the rest of us. The group erupted in laughter, but behind the humor there was an unspoken recognition. Shelley wasn't just playing a part anymore. She was becoming someone new. I didn't really think it was supposed to turn out like this, Jennifer admitted one evening. I thought Mickey was meant to come back at the end of the year. Yeah, it feels like this whole thing was supposed to be a temporary spelling mistake, said Vicky with a nervous laugh. Leave it to me, Cynthia cut in. I'll look into it. Inside, she knew the time had come. I'll have to confront Lydia. The next morning, Cynthia marched into Lydia's office. You cannot be serious, she snapped. You're telling me you set all this in motion yourself? Lydia sat back coolly. On the contrary. My sessions confirm what I believed from the start. Shelley isn't just playing pretend, she's committed. She's experiencing something real. And you, Cynthia, you lit the fuse. You've taken it too far, Cynthia shot back. This was supposed to last a few months, that's all. Now look what you've done. Lydia's eyes narrowed. I could expose you for the role you played in this. But you won't, Cynthia countered. If I go down, Shelley does too, and you lose your golden opportunity to study her progress. Face it, Lydia, we're stuck with each other. 2 more months. Then this is finished. Lydia considered. Then, slowly she said, fine. But for those 2 months, you leave her to me. Cynthia bit her lip, but nodded. She didn't like it, but for now, she had no choice. For the next several weeks, Shelley kept her routines, sessions with Lydia, training with Jenny, and long hours studying. Cynthia and the girls decided to give her space. They watched closely, but chose not to interfere. The group tried to keep things light. At this rate, she'll be running the cheer squad by summer, Helen joked. Or giving them a run for their money, Melissa teased. The laughter helped cover their unease. But Jenny couldn't laugh it off. For her, Shelley's transformation wasn't entertainment. It was personal. After all, this had begun partly for Jenny's sake. Her father's support hinged on it. Now it felt like Shelley's entire life was spinning in a direction none of them had imagined. You need to be honest with me, Shelley, Jenny said one evening when they were alone in Shelley's room. Honest about what? Shelley asked, startled. We know about Lydia. About the treatments. All of it. Shelley blinked. Who's we? All of us. Cynthia. The girls. It's not exactly been subtle, Shelley. Jenny hesitated, then added, you didn't change this much by accident. Shelley leaned back on the bed, exhaling. I never set out to deceive anyone. What you see is who I am. This is me. Jenny frowned. Cynthia thinks Lydia has been steering you, maybe even pushing you. Shelley sat up and let out a short laugh. If anything, it's the other way around. Jenny's eyes narrowed. So what exactly have you been telling her, Shelley? Jennifer's hug had stayed with Shelley, giving her a sense of comfort. By the time final exams were over, she felt more at ease than she could have imagined. The girls planned a big end-of-year party, and of course Shelley was invited. She felt nervous, but when she noticed that none of Mickey's old friends seemed to even remember him, let alone connect her with him, she allowed herself to relax. For the celebration, Shelley wore a simple but elegant black dress with matching heels. With her makeup and hair done, she blended in perfectly with the crowd of students. She sipped a glass of wine now and then, careful not to overdo it, and stuck close to the girls she trusted. Still, she couldn't ignore the glances. A few of the guys whispered among themselves, and some of the girls giggled along. Shelley grew uneasy, worried that maybe, just maybe, someone had figured her out. Carol, a little tipsy, leaned in and whispered, You're the talk of the night, Shelley. Everyone's watching you. Shelley excused herself and stepped out onto the porch for air. That's when she heard a voice from the shadows. Hi, Shelley. It was Phil, a classmate. Tall, dark-haired, friendly. Oh, hey Phil, she said, trying to sound casual. You look great tonight, he told her. Shelley smiled, genuinely touched. Thanks. They decided to take a short walk along the campus path. The lamps glowed softly, couples strolled past, and a gentle breeze lifted the hem of her dress. Shelley thought about how strange it was barely a year ago. She had walked this same path as Mickey. Now she was Shelley, and the world saw her completely differently. Phil asked about her life. You really love tennis, don't you? Yeah, Shelley admitted. But it's more than that. My studies. My friends. Everything here. And everyone knows you don't date much, Phil teased. Shelley laughed softly. Maybe I've just been busy. When they returned to the party, they talked a while longer. Toward the end of the night, Phil handed her a slip of paper. My number. Keep in touch, okay? Shelley hesitated, then smiled. I'd like that. As he turned to go, He surprised her with a gentle kiss on the lips. Shelley gasped, startled, then found herself kissing him back. Her hands rested lightly on his shoulders, her heart racing. When they pulled apart, Phil grinned. "Don't forget." Then he walked away. Shelley stood frozen for a moment, her thoughts spinning. She slipped back into the house, avoided the stragglers still partying, and collapsed onto her bed, exhausted but strangely exhilarated. The next day, Marian handed Cynthia a file. "It's all finalized. Where Shelley goes from here is her choice." "Absolutely, Lydia. Of course, we'd never push her into anything, but I'm sure she'll want us to continue counseling and supporting her." "I have to say, her progress so far has been remarkable. And not just physically," added Lydia. "Her confidence, her sense of self, you'd never guess she once lived differently." The two women, Lydia and Marian, had just finished drafting official authorizations that recognized Michelle Webster as a student who had successfully lived in her new role and was, in their professional view, ready for whatever next steps she might one day choose. "When are you going to tell her?" Marian asked. "Tomorrow," Lydia replied. "Let's give her a day to recover from last night's party." The next morning, Shelley went to Lydia's office as requested. "You've come such a long way, Shelley," Lydia began warmly. "And since you'll soon be moving on from the college, we wanted to talk about your future. Marian and I believe you're ready now, if you decide to take further steps." She handed Shelley a folder with referral letters, hospital options, and background information. Marian carefully explained what each meant, walking Shelley through what might be possible one day. Shelley listened quietly, nodding. She'd researched so much already that nothing here was new, but hearing it presented formally made it all feel real. "Thank you," Shelley said softly as she stood to leave. Later that day, Jenny invited her to meet with Cynthia. "First things first, Shelley," Cynthia asked gently, "do you have any plans for what comes next?" "Not really," Shelley admitted. "Everything's happened so fast." "Well," Cynthia smiled, "Jenny is about to begin a professional career. And I'll be coaching her. But we don't want to leave you behind. There's a place for you as assistant coach and training partner. It's your choice, but you've done so well, it would be a shame to split up now." Shelley's eyes widened. "You mean travel? Competitions? Working with you both full-time?" "Exactly," said Jenny. "We want you with us." Cynthia handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter of thanks from Jenny's father and a check made out to Michelle Jane Webster for $25,000. Shelley's hands trembled as she held it. She thought of all the doubts, all the confusion, all the lonely nights she had spent wondering if this new identity could really last. And here it was, validation, opportunity, and freedom, wrapped in a single gesture of gratitude. She looked up, her eyes shining. "Cynthia. Jenny, can you make it official? Not Mickey graduating." "Michelle." "Of course," Cynthia replied without hesitation. "Then we've got a deal," Shelley said firmly. Jenny hugged her tightly. "I knew you'd come through, Shelley. You won't regret this. This is just the beginning." At the end of the week, they agreed to meet again in 3 months. Shelley promised she'd be fit and ready to go then, but had some personal business to attend to first. She packed her bags, said her goodbyes to the other girls, called a cab, and left the campus behind. Nearly a year later, Phil closed the door behind him as he stepped into Shelley's apartment. He had been surprised when she'd reached out to him after so much time, but he hadn't hesitated to say yes. They'd gone out 3 nights in a row now, and he was struck by how much she had grown and matured in that single year. "Wow," Phil thought to himself, stealing another glance at her. "She's incredible. Completely different, yet somehow the same." "Thanks, Phil," Shelley said warmly, setting her purse down. "It's been a really lovely evening." But she hesitated for just a moment, her eyes glinting with mischief. "There's something I want to show you." Phil raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? And what's that?" "In the other room," Shelley replied softly. "Follow me." Phil followed her into the bedroom, his curiosity rising. She turned to face him, her expression suddenly more serious, her voice quieter. "It's a surprise, Phil," she said, her hands folded nervously in front of her. "But for this one, you'll have to trust me." "Close your eyes." Phil chuckled nervously, sensing the tension in the air. Okay, Shelley, you've got me intrigued. As he slowly covered his eyes with his hands, Shelley drew in a deep breath. She knew that this was the moment, not just about what she was about to reveal to Phil, but about fully stepping into her truth, without hesitation, without fear. The end.